Having ghost powers is a great original concept. We don't really know what ghosts are or even if they exist, so you can play around with it as much as you want. And he had a very diverse group of friends in the show. The show was really ahead of its time. But what if the backbone of the show, the accident that gave Danny his ghost powers, didn't actually happen?
When it didn't quite work, his folks, they just quit. Then Danny took a look inside of it. There was a great big flash, everything just changed. His molecules got all rearranged.
Well, the accident happened, but instead of giving him ghost powers, it sent him blasted into a coma, and all the crazy adventures he goes on are just figments of his imagination in a coma state. There have been cases of people in comas where they can hear what's going on around them. So maybe Danny Fenton is in a coma, and all the different characters that are around him are the doctors, nurses, and visitors that are coming in to see him. Maybe the reason he goes between ghost and human form is because he's constantly on the edge of life and death. Number 6, episode 29 of The Amanda Show. The Amanda Show was one of the best kids sketch shows of all time. It set up Amanda Bynes to be one of the biggest comedy stars ever. But then, of course, her life took a turn for the wild side and she started saying things about how she wanted to bang Drake. Then she got those permanent dimple piercings, you know, those ones that make you look like you never say no to bathroom drugs. Well, before all this went down, her show had an episode with themes that were a little bit more on the risky side. In episode 29 of The Amanda Show, it starts out with an Italian man who explodes out of nowhere. Then later in the episode, it's followed by a sketch with a family known as the Luckless. They are so unlucky that nothing lucky ever happens to them. This sketch ends with a meteor smashing into the Luckless's home and destroying it. Now, on their own, these sketches aren't too bad, but if you wrap in the fact that this episode aired right before 9/11, then you can see why it was taken off the air. A man blowing himself up and a flying object destroying a building would have for sure been in bad taste. And the underlying theme that people might think is there is that it's all conspiracy theory, and the Amanda Show people were trying to tell us what was going to happen. Probably not, but who knows. Number 5. Steve Does Drugs, Blue's Clues. By the time Blue's Clues came out, I was already too old. The anime era had grabbed me, and I wasn't some juvenile kid anymore watching baby shows. I was an angsty preteen who would cry if he misplaced one of his shiny Pokemon cards.
Everybody's
Much
been
more
used
mature.
Steve
But I
been
do know
getting
the
hot.
show's about a guy
Big
walking
Bobby,
around
what
his
it do,
house,
baby?
talking to inanimate objects, trying to find clues. He's doing this because
Bobby
it's a fun
Bits,
way to
damn
teach
Bobby
kids.
Bits.
Or is the dark message behind the show that Steve is a former detective who worked a case so disturbing that it broke him?
Damari
mentally.
popped on the
Now he
stream
spends
last
his
night,
days
came through,
dosing
showed some
himself
love.
with enough drugs to hallucinate and forget the case that tore him down. The detective theory explains why a grown man is so interested in clues, and the drugs explain why he can talk to salt
Yeah,
chickens.
he interested in clues because he high as
Worst
shit. I know what he was
superpower of all
doing, man.
time. I would like to see
He
a
was really
dark,
trying to find
noir
out
version of
why
Blue's
Blue
Clues, where Steve is trying to solve the murder
jumped
of
through
a
that
young girl,
motherfucking
and he has to
painting.
beat answers out of a fire hydrant. That would be interesting. Number 4 is SpongeBob Dying for Pie. So how did all the characters in the SpongeBob universe come to be sentient beings with complex emotions and an entire society similar to our own? Is it all made up, or is it because they're sea creatures that got blasted with nukes and now they all got mutated? That's how life starts, right? You blast things with nuclear energy and then everyone gets smarter. Well, the theory is that the underwater world of Bikini Bottom got all of its super intelligent life forms from nuclear bomb testing. This theory is kind of backed up by the episode Dying for Pie, where SpongeBob has a pie with a bomb in it, and when it goes off, it's a nuclear level explosion.
I was saving it in my pocket for us to share. Let's eat. Oh.
Due to its freestyle sandbox nature, trust is among the most important resources in EVE Online, which is why the best ship.
Yo, tell Dami and Mommy to subscribe and follow to this Twitch account, bro, and tell them to jump on real quick.
You don't just get nukes out of nowhere. Maybe they got access to nukes from a failed nuclear test where the bomb didn't go off. They then took it and made themselves someone to be respected at the next UN meeting. Number 3, iCarly. The Nora Dershlet episodes. This is another show that I've never seen before, guys, but I'm pretty sure I get what the show is about. Some girl has some sort of web show and it's kind of famous and she's got a whole bunch of zany friends and her parents are probably pretty goofy too. Basically the same as every other kid's show, but it's about an internet celebrity. Well, one episode dove into something that is actually a real risk for celebrities and influencers. Stalkers. People are willing to buy your old toothbrush off of eBay and stand too close to you when they talk. In the episode, a superfan, Nora Dershlit kidnaps Carly and a few of her friends. She keeps them locked in her home. Where's this girl's parents? In the show, it's very fun and playful, and eventually they all escape in the most unlikely way. I swear I could write kids shows blackout drunk. But what's freaky about this stuff is that it happens all
Yo, I'm not gonna
the
hold
time,
you.
Especially now with
You
everyone
know,
and their dog
I look at
becoming some sort of
iCarly different because it's like,
influencer.
yo, all those girls on that show, bro, it's like, they really had to fight through a lot of shit, bro. And they sit there with all them smiles on their faces while them old ass nasty white niggas was touching them little girls, fucking up their heads. Like, that shit fucked up, bro. I can't just look at that shit the same no more.
Mr. Dink. And what's the first thing that Mr. Dink does to the 11-year-old boy that he just met?
Do you have time to watch the official Welcome to Bluffington video? It's short and informative.
Well, my family's starving and I really...
Well, of course you do.
Oh, he tried
Well,
to
he
take
invites
my
him
son
into
Doug
one movie
Yeats.
all by himself. My
I used to
God,
fuck
dude,
with
this
Doug
is
Heavy
so
too, bro. You remember,
good.
Tay?
In later episodes, Mr. Dink becomes Doug's Boy Scout leader, which is basically a child molester's dream job. And of course, his name is Mr. Dink. How many more warnings do you need? Number one, the grass.
Oh shit, I got 5 people in the
touches
chat.
So much at one school.
That's
We
what I'm
have
talking
teen
about.
Pregnancies, fights,
Everybody say
sexual
what's
assaults.
up.
Even Drake gets shot. The dude
Or he gonna
gets
come
shot
holla at you. You see him with the,
into
you
a
see him with the
wheelchair.
grip up
My
there?
school was
He gonna come
nothing
holla
like
at you.
this.
Him and
People
Lil
were
Drake.
all cool with each other, even the pregnant ones. There's too much.
Yo, you
going on
remember
in the
this
show
nigga
just to
off the
pick
grassy?
one,
You
so
see
all
Drake
the
on there,
hidden
bro?
meanings are basically that growing up is super hard and you should always
Fuck
wear
outta
a
here.
condom.
Aubrey.
Disney
Name
was
is
in a whole lot
Aubrey,
of hot
fuck outta
water
here.
when their movie The Santa Claus included a reference that actually might be an adult hotline. There was a part in the movie where Tim Allen's character jokes about this number.
Will's mom's number, I guess.
I'm not gonna hold you. All of those, any individual that was in a specific position of power at a specific time, like, nah, you just a different breed. And that, but see, like, that's a vague statement, I know, but it's like, shit, we'll run through hell trying to, like, you know, identify every single one of them. You feel me? But like, but beloved, you ain't where you at, being a motherfucking saint. You hear me?
I mean, someone had to have known that this was an operating number. I refuse to believe that this is just an innocent mistake. Creeping on our list, and at number 9, we have Aladdin's naughty message. Okay, I'm not sure. Did you guys catch that? Apparently Aladdin isn't as innocent as you might think. In the VHS version of the movie, you can actually hear him supposedly say, "Good teenagers, take off your clothes." Well, let me play that clip again for you guys. Well, what do you guys think? You be the judge of that. The voice actor denied ever saying those words. Well, in the
they ain't
script,
say
he
it.
apparently
So,
said,
you know,
"Come on,
some
good
things they
kitty,
do blow
take
out of
off and go."
proportion. But you
I'm
know,
going with the
they do
first
be
one.
doing
I'm
some
not going
weird
with
shit
this
on these
one, but I'm not sure what to
motherfucking
believe.
cause you
This
gotta
seems
think about it,
super
right?
suspect to me,
A
and
pixel
maybe it
is
was
just
intentionally implanted.
a
Nose takes
a
us over
degenerated
to
form of whatever
Let's
you're
all
trying to
examine
see. You
this
get what I'm
movie
saying?
cover
So
very
if
closely. All right, well,
you
guys
can
look at it right now. Do you guys see
hide a
anything,
million pictures
a little bit unusual? How
inside
about
of
if I
something
make
that
an
takes
outline for you?
like
Seems
a
pretty
quadrillion
obvious, doesn't it? I mean, who
pixels
the heck
to be
drew this
like
cover?
to even see a
Someone with
portion of
some
it.
repressed issues,
I mean, like, bro, you
apparently.
can't.
You know what? I can't unsee this image. I think my childhood is over. But wait, we're only shocked when they found out that it was an operating sex hotline that charged callers by the minute. So needless to say, lots of kids racked up some pretty huge phone bills as a result of this huge mistake. And I can't believe something like that could actually happen. I mean, someone had to have known that this was an operating number. I refuse to believe that this is just an innocent mistake. Creeping on our list, and at number 9, we have Aladdin's naughty message. Okay, I'm not sure. Did you guys catch that? Apparently Aladdin isn't as innocent as you might think. In the VHS version of the movie, you can actually hear him supposedly say, "Good teenagers, take off your clothes." Well, let me play that clip again for you guys. Well, what do you guys think? You be the judge of that. The voice actor denied ever saying those lines. Well, in the script, he apparently said, "Come on, good kitty, take off and go." I'm going with the first one. I'm not going with this one. But I'm not sure what to believe. This seems super suspect to me, and maybe it was intentionally implanted. Mufasa's nose takes us over to number 8. Well, let's all examine this movie cover very closely. Alright, well, you guys are looking at it right now. Do you guys see anything a little bit unusual? How about if I make an outline for you guys? Seems pretty obvious now, doesn't it? I mean, who the heck drew this cover art? Someone with some repressed issues, apparently. Now, you know what? I can't unsee this image. I think my childhood is over. But wait, we're only at number 8, so I guess there's more childhood memories to kill. Great. With that all being said, and at number 7 we have The Unconscious Woman. Did you guys ever notice that Disney had a really creepy recurring theme in a lot of its movies? I'm specifically talking about the fact that in both Snow White and Sleeping Beauty, the princesses could only be woken up when they got kissed by a prince. Well, does anyone else see a problem with this? They are literally unconscious women who've never met any of these men before, but they were basically being violated. I mean, what the heck are we teaching our kids? I mean, Bill
That's
Cosby
vicious. I was
this
stuck
sort
in
of
the game.
thing,
But I just peeped
crossing
over to what he was
Disney
talking
movies.
about.
This is actually so bizarre, so let's move on. Esmeralda's naked body and her fire dance brings us to number 6. I think Disney needs to start doing some background checks on their employees because they have some pretty perverted people working in the art department. I mean, I can't even count on my hands. I mean, how many inappropriate things have slipped into Disney movies? And the next one is no exception. Well, take a look at this picture right here. You can clearly see that Esmeralda's body is highlighted and appears to be naked during her fire dance. In most of the dance sequence, it looks like she was clothed, but there are a ton of frames where it looks like she's actually naked. I just don't know what or who to believe anymore. I mean, my whole childhood, it was just one big lie, wasn't it? Alright, give up all your morals, and this takes us to number 5. There are a lot of life lessons that can be learned from watching movies, especially Disney movies. Well, maybe not. But then there are a bunch of harsh realities that are subliminally hidden in these same exact films. Disney basically taught us that if you want something
Yeah, that's a
badly,
fact.
you
We
should
need
just
we need
throw
more
away your
people to jump
morals
in here,
in order to
man.
get it. Don't believe me? Well, I'm giving you some examples.
Man,
I'm giving you some
figured me
receipts. In The Little Mermaid, one of the worst lessons that was embedded into the film was when Ariel basically sold her soul to Ursula so she can get a pair of legs. She has no problems leaving her family, her friends, leaving her home, and losing her voice to chase the possibility of marrying a prince. The prince falls in love with her because of her looks, not her personality. So what is Disney trying to teach us here? What are they telling us? I mean, this is not okay. Next up, number 4, we have a naked lady poster. I kid you not, this is probably one of the most recognizable subliminal messages that has ever been found in a Disney movie. If you rewatch the VHS copy of The Rescuers, you will actually see one of the most inappropriate background images ever seen. It's not even a cartoon naked lady, it literally looks like an actual picture of a topless girl with her arms spread. Why is this even featured in the movie? It has no business being there. The overly excited minister tramples onto our list at number 3. Yeah, that's right. We're talking about The Little Mermaid once again. We can probably do a whole top 10 list on The Little Mermaid. But this subliminal message is even more creepy because it involves a priest. Okay, do you guys remember the scene where Ursula is tricking Prince Eric into marrying her? Well, apparently someone was extra excited at the ceremony and they decided to make an appearance. The original animator argues that it's just the priest's knee, but I'm gonna have to call them out on this one because that knee definitely didn't need to be there. Moving to number 2, we have the devil's dog hand signal. Apparently in a bunch of Disney movies, there are a ton of scenes where the characters are all doing this hand gesture. This is the devil's dog and it signifies the horn of the devil, and it is often associated with Satan worshippers. So are Disney employees just Satan followers, or is this a mistake that was overlooked by a bunch of people a bunch of times? And I'm not sure if I actually want to know the answer to that one. And now coming in at number 1, we have a Nazi symbol. This picture was taken from 101 Dalmatians, and as you can clearly see, there was a swastika on Purdy's back. And this isn't the first time that the animators used spots on the Dalmatian to convey a message, a hidden message. As you can see, there's a horseshoe on Lucky's back in the same picture. So obviously they are pretty adamant about placements of the spots, and it just seems like they've been put there on purpose. Apparently there are a lot of disgruntled employees working at Disney, and maybe this is just their way of lashing out.
Starting off this countdown, we have DuckTales Illuminati. In Season 3, Episode 13, in an episode of DuckTales titled Yuppie Ducks, fans noticed something quite strange in the background of a scene. So in this episode, Scrooge gets a bad itch and has to go to a doctor. The doctor has some weird decorations in his office, though. In the background, there's an eye chart, but the eye chart clearly reads, "Ask about Illuminati." It's not that subtle at all. And why is it that the animators decided to throw in that little subliminal message? Are they trying to tell us something?
Most people have no clue that in 2020,
Oh, I hate these
the
damn
best
fake
way to
ass
make money
ads,
on
man.
Amazon is not with physical products.
In our ninth spot, we have SpongeBob's TV. And if you guys are liking this video
Sponge-biggity.
so far and you want to see more content like this, then make sure to give it a big thumbs up. Not gonna lie, SpongeBob is filled with dirty jokes. As kids watching the show, it often went over our heads. But if you go back and re-watch the episodes, chances are you'll understand what the writers were truly trying to convey. Take the scene of SpongeBob featured in the episode Your Shoes Untied. In this episode, SpongeBob forgets how to tie his shoes, but that's irrelevant. In one scene, SpongeBob turns on the TV and relaxes back in his chair. On the TV, we see Sea Anemone dancing back and forth. SpongeBob is clearly into this. Then Gary enters the room and he quickly switches the channel to a football game. And he's clearly embarrassed, implying that what he was originally watching was inappropriate. Gary caught him right in the middle of him watching a rated R program. In our 8th spot, we have the Three Little Pigs. Disney is sick for including this in the show. So let's take a look at the Three Little Pigs. In one scene, we see the pigs singing and dancing in one of their homes. But beside them in the back is a framed picture of sausages. And we all know that sausages are made out of pig. To make matters worse, the frame is labeled as father. So their father got turned into sausages and eaten. In another scene, we see another framed piece of meat artwork.
Hey,
This
yo.
time, it's a Hamlet,
Yeah, they need to
and it's
start throwing
also
the
labeled
paws out
father.
there.
So the Three
Who's
Little
framing
Pigs'
meat
father
around
was
here?
killed, hacked up, and sold as different meat items. Disgusting. Moving on at number 7, we have Adventure Time. Adventure Time is just another one of those shows that is filled with inappropriate jokes. But there are two main episodes that I want to talk about today. The first one being the episode titled, What Have You Done? In this episode, the Ice King accidentally infects all of the Candy Kingdom with an ice plague. And so Princess Bubblegum looks back through her research book to see if she's got a cure for this. Well, as she is flipping through the book, we see a number written on the page. 531.
We're gonna see how this go. I know it
8008.
seemed a
Look at this
little,
number in
like,
the mirror,
especially
and
like
it
defensive
spells out
wise, it's
boo-
weak. Fuck,
It
like
does.
with that chimera
They
shit
also
here.
carefully place
But we
the
gonna hope
dots
that
and the numbers
she
to
bitch ass nigga
represent, you know,
working.
come on, you get it. I don't have to say it. The next episode I'm going to be talking about is the one called Blank-Eyed Girl. Now this isn't as subtle as the last episode, but basically in this episode, Jake and Flynn are looking for the creepy stuff book. While exploring a shelf with many books, they come across one titled Butt Stuff. Again, I really don't need to explain this. Moving on at number 6, we have the Rugrats. Grandpa Lou from the Rugrats always creeped me out. And the next scene from the Rugrats proves that he's just as creepy as I always thought he was. So in one episode, we see Grandpa Lou babysitting Tommy and Chucky. He tells them that he rented a movie for them. He says,
Yeah,
and I
my son
quote,
Grandpa
"Let's
Lou
get
had
down
the
to some
Ono out.
real
Yeah, I
fun.
remember that.
I've rented you boys some movies." He then holds up a movie featuring the Reptar. And then he holds up the movie that he rented for himself. He then says, "But my personal favorite is Lonely Space Vixens." The movie that he's holding features a green-skinned female alien in a bikini. He then laughs and wiggles his eyebrows and says, "Now that's for after you go to bed." Ew! Ugh, I'm sorry. Like, that definitely wasn't necessary. Oh, get that image out of my mind. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with Dexter's Lab. For this show, let's take a look at the episode titled Nuclear Confusion. In this episode, Dee Dee
this is the one
steals
I
an
really
important
wanted
part
to
to
see.
one of Dexter's inventions, and then decides to make him go on a scavenger hunt before he can get the piece back. One of the clues told Dexter to look next door, so he goes there and we see him in the kitchen with the neighbor lady. There she offers him cookies, but drops one to the floor. She
I
then
gotta
goes
drop
to
his
retrieve
power.
it,
He's strong as shit.
and
I'm gonna
written
drop his
across
power
her
and get the
bottom
trust on that bitch
is
ass nigga.
Dad's trophy. Just take that in for a moment, okay? Obviously, the next clue was for Dexter to go look at his dad's trophy. But we all know that that has a double meaning.
Yeah, that's a
Also,
trophy.
how
He like
heck
the
did
way
Dee
his
Dee
shorty
manage to
look,
write that
bitch.
across her bomb without her even feeling it? I'm concerned. In our 4th spot, we have the Krusty Krab. This next fact, or whatever you want to call it, has ruined SpongeBob for me. I can never look at the show again the same. So SpongeBob, as we all know, lives in an underwater town called Bikini Bottom. He works at the Krusty Krab. The Krusty Krab in Bikini Bottom. Just think about it, okay? Not only that, but there's also the Chum Bucket. Bikini Bottom has a Krusty Krab and a Chum Bucket. If I have to explain this, then you're too young to be watching this video. The creators really thought they were sly with that one. Coming in at number 3, we have Dexter's assistant. How did we not catch on to this as kids? We were just so young and naive. Okay, in an episode, Dexter gets fed up with Dee Dee and decides to hire a replacement. He then hires a woman named Candy, a very tall and attractive blonde woman who is blessed in the chest area, if you get what I'm saying. At one point, Dexter asked her to dance around. She replies with, okay, but it's $50 extra. Also, the fact that they named her Candy? Come on. They made that too obvious. In our second spot, we have the Genius. Here's another dirty reference from SpongeBob. Are we surprised? I'm not. So in the episode titled Texas, Sandy gets homesick and wants to go, if you guys know, then you know. You're lucky we're keeping that in for you. Patrick and SpongeBob are trying to think of ways to make her feel less homesick. During this conversation, Patrick has a good idea, and SpongeBob says, Patrick, your genius is showing. Patrick then panics and quickly covers his crotch area. What rhymes with genius? Yeah, you know exactly what he thought SpongeBob was referring to. And in our number 1 spot, we have Rocco's Modern Life. This next hidden message was a little too much, and in the end, it ended up being cut out from the episode. So let's take a look at the episode titled Hut Saw Raw. In the episode, we see Rocco picking berries from a bush. Upon picking one of the berries, we see a bear run out of the bush, whimpering while holding his crotch, implying that Rocco picked the wrong set of berries, if you know what I mean. Now, this scene did see air, but then it was edited out by Nickelodeon for future broadcasts, and for the Season 2 DVD release. But in Canada, they didn't bother to edit out, and they just let it play with this interesting scene still in it.
There was no
Number 10,
filters back then, bro.
SpongeBob
It's just
SquarePants Plankton
like
Paranoia.
nobody
The
was
king
really
of
paying
the
attention
meme
to
world.
shit.
SpongeBob has
Like,
been
that's what
on
it
for
really
so
was.
long. It has touched
Yo, why the
so
fuck
many
you keep
generations,
attacking
and now is the
Pain for,
granddaddy
bro?
of the
That's
internet
pain
in
for
more
the
ways
pain.
than one. In the episode Plankton Paranoia, we see Mr. Krabs go off the deep end. Again, it's not unusual for the crustaceous business owner to lose it. He's about as stable as Jeffrey Epstein's relationship with the Clintons. In this episode, we really see his mind unravel like a fruit roll-up. It goes from Mr. Krabs setting new rules in the Krusty Krabs to straight up hallucinations. This level of paranoia makes me think old Eugene Harold Krabs was hitting the crack pipe after closing time. Although this is a kid's show and everything is exaggerated, the episode really dives deep into what someone suffering from severe paranoia or schizophrenia might look like. Number 9, Rugrats. Chucky's Wonderful Life. Now we move on to a cartoon that had one of the best opening songs ever. The music went off on that xylophone. It probably lit on fire by the time it was done. But in the episode, we see the show take a dark turn. It starts off with Angelica telling Chucky everyone's lives would be better if he was never born. So he packs up all his stuff in a little hobo sack and heads out for the open road. Then he's confronted by his guardian angel to show him what the world would really look like without him. And let me tell you, it's harsh. We start with his dad, who's now single and only lives with sock puppets. I don't think he's getting laid anytime soon. Girls don't usually get hot and heavy over googly eyes glued to fabric. Then we see that Phil and Lil turned into punks who probably mosh super hard and yell at their mom. And to top it all off, Tommy is homeless and Angelica has packed on some pounds. She looks like Jabba the Hutt's fatter brother. The episode's basically saying you gotta love yourself, man. You're more important than you think. Number 8, My Life as a Teenage Robot, The Return of Raggedy Android. My Life as a Teenage Robot, a show that had it all. The action of Fast and the Furious with all the drama of Degrassi. In the episode Return of Raggedy Android, we see Jenny get kicked out of a diner because the owner doesn't want to serve robots. This has huge undertones of racism. I'm pretty sure the scene takes place in a 50s style diner to really send the message home. Don't forget that most of our grandparents used to be racist. They look all cute and sweet now with their Werther originals, but they used to say racial slurs behind everyone's back. So to avoid this problem, Jenny gets an exosuit that makes her look like a real human girl. But the suit has kind of symbiote properties like the symbiotes from Spider-Man. It has a mind of its own and evil intentions. The exosuit starts to tell Jenny not to save people because that's not what a normal girl would do. which of course has the underlying message of how women are constantly told to be pretty little things that are nice to look at. So much is going on in this episode. Racism, sexism, Spider-Man ripoffs. I love it. Number 7, SpongeBob Nasty Patty. I'm gonna
That's
start
a
off
fact,
by
they
saying
still
the
are. And
hidden
this-
message in this
and it's
episode
even
is
more crazier
don't
because
lie,
they
and
hide
you
it behind
should
smiles.
confront your problems as soon
And
as
when
you
they
have
hide it
them
behind
because
smiles,
they'll
if
only
anybody
build
tries
up
to
to be
stand up
bigger
to it,
problems if you
then you're
don't.
pointed
It
out as
starts
like the
off with
aggressive
Mr.
one,
Krabs
the
and
bad one,
SpongeBob
the angry
mistaking
guy.
the
You
health
know what I'm
inspector
talking
for a
about?
criminal. So they basically try to
This is work,
poison
brother.
him with a rancid Krabby Patty. They think they've killed him, so they try to dispose of the body. The police get involved, and then they have this whole series of comical moments while they're trying to hide the body while also simultaneously dealing with the police. Eventually, we learn that the health inspector was alive the whole time, and the Krusty Krab has passed its health inspection. But if SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs had confronted the health inspector about their suspicions at the beginning of the episode, none of this would have happened. Number 6, Ren and Stimpy, Stimpy's Fan Club. This show holds the title for taking it too far. It's got sexual
Yeah, that's a
themes,
fact. Yo, Ren and
violence,
Stimpy was
disturbing
been on some
images,
mook shit,
all
bro. That
from
shit was
me.
ridiculous.
Must be my birthday. In this particular episode, we see Ren have a psychotic breakdown because Stimpy gets more fan mail than him. This leads to Ren contemplating killing Stimpy with his bare hands by snapping his neck. At least he's nice enough to make it quick. The episode is basically touching on how jealousy can drive you crazy. Don't let it get to you. Instead of beating yourself up because someone has things that you don't have, take it easy and be grateful for what you do have. Or kill them in your sleep. Those are really your two options.
I am in desperate need of a gift card.
Girl, you can't be serious.
I am serious, and don't call me girly.
Try the apple, lady.
Get ready to explore a world of online shopping. G2A.com, Gates to Adventure.
Number 5, TMNT, Same as It Never Was. In this episode of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, they get attacked and Donatello gets ripped through time. He ends up in a future world where everything is janky as hell. The Turtles' lair looks like a fraternity that had too many White Claws went and sent it through all the furniture. We find out that Master Splinter is dead, all the turtles are jacked up real bad, and Shredder has taken over the world and become the mascot for Shreddies. Everything has fallen apart because Donatello disappeared 30 years ago. Eventually, this leads to an all-out assault on Shredder, with everyone dying except for April O'Neil and Donatello. Then Donatello gets warped back to his original time. The hidden message here is even if you feel like the Donatello in your group, even if you feel like a dork who never brings home the girl and uses a staff as his weapon of choice, you're still very important and you should feel valued. Number 4, Invader Zim, Dark Harvest. One of the darkest shows that ever was on Nickelodeon. The creators deliberately made the show more twisted to push back against the producers. People making something more offensive out of spite, that's my kind of entertainment. Like when everyone was telling Miley Cyrus to be a cute little Disney princess, so she decided to hoe it up for 3 years, by far the best part of the Miley saga. In this episode, we see Zim taking organs from all the kids in an attempt to be more human.
Yeah.
This could be the creators trying to comment on how people
Invader
consume
Zim,
themselves with material
Invader
possessions
Zim
in order to
laid the
feel more
precipice
complete.
for all
But in
of
the
those
end, you
shows.
just have
Rick
an
and
empty
Morty,
hole in your heart. It doesn't matter
Solar
how many
Opposites,
live, laugh,
all of
love
those
signs
shits.
you buy, Nance. It's not gonna save your marriage. Or maybe this is just an episode about an alien eating kids. Who knows? Number 3, Kids Next Door, Operation Future. They're
K&D,
kids, they're
that was
spies,
my
I
shit.
love it. In the episode
Yo,
Operation
kids nowadays,
Future,
man, they don't
number
understand
4
what they're
gets
missing.
sent to a boarding school and soon finds out it's an all-girl boarding school. And then finds out the person running the school is secretly trying to turn all the boys in the world into girls. Wow, times have changed. Could you imagine a kids show today where they tried to change kids' genders against their will? The backlash would be insane. Both the left and the
Yeah,
right
exactly,
would be
and
sending
they
off
doing that
hateful
shit
tweets
now.
faster than that short guy who got owned in New York.
Go ahead and attack me.
And they doing that shit
also
now,
has some
exactly.
pretty
Ain't that
dated
shit real?
views
You know what I
on
mean?
boys and
They've been
girls,
giving
with
us
the
the
hidden
source,
message
bro,
being
and the
that
shows
all
that they
boys
was
are dirty
expecting
and rough,
people
and
to
all
not
girls
even
are
pay
soft and
attention
like
to.
pink stuff. Number 2, Legend of Korra, Venom of the Red Lotus. The whole Avatar series is incredible, and going beyond that, the show is constantly touching on themes of racism, elitism, and tragedies of war. This episode in particular pushes the boundaries. Korra is kidnapped by the Red Lotus cult and tortured by them bending mercury into her body. She eventually escapes and the mercury is taken out, but the whole experience leaves her very traumatized and damaged, like every girl I've ever dated. And she's rough after this. Not like rough after you do too many Jaeger bombs, you wake up the next morning and you're so hungover that sound hurts your feelings. She needs real rehab and has PTSD. The episode touches on some of the real effects that trauma can have on a person, and the episodes after show how long it can take for someone to recover from a traumatic event. Number 1 on our list is Pokemon Sun and Moon. One journey ends, another begins. Okay guys, get ready for some feels. In this episode, Ash and Pikachu come across a Lin that is living under a bridge with an old and weak Stalin. Ash tries to save the older Stalin by taking it to a Poke Center, but eventually it escapes and returns to under the bridge to be with the Lin. Throughout the episode, we see the Stalin get weaker and weaker until eventually it passes away and leaves the Lin all on its own. The Lin goes through a bit of a depression, refusing to eat and refusing to leave the spot where the Stalin died. Eventually, we have a rainy night followed by a sunny morning, and in the clouds we see a cloud that looks like Stalin. Straight up Lion King. Remember. This gives the Lin the motivation it needs to keep on going. This episode will definitely hit hard for anyone who has ever said goodbye to a pet.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have Courage the Cowardly Dog. We are starting this list off with intention today because I feel like this is one of the most widely feared children's
I'm
cartoons.
not gonna hold you. I be watching shit. Like I be paying attention to what they were talking about here, and then I just like I gotta rewatch the whole series. You know, you just can't catch one episode because it's like, damn, what else did I miss?
Just about Courage, who is a dog with human-like characteristics.
Especially with Courage the Cowardly
The three
Dog,
all
bro.
live in the middle of nowhere, and each episode they are thrown into different, insane, bizarre, and usually really disturbing situations that they have to get out of. The show is known for its extremely eerie and creepy atmosphere and the energy that the show gives off. Contrary to the name, Courage is a dog who is very easily frightened. He was abandoned when he was a puppy after his parents were sent into outer space, and this is when the very friendly Muriel found him and took him in. Muriel, however, is married to the grumpy, mean, and greedy Eustace, who is often quite rude to Courage. Despite being terrified,
that's a
Courage
whole
always finds a
fact.
way to face his fears in order to protect his owners, and I think that is something that we can all appreciate. All in all, Courage the Cowardly Dog is a fantastic cartoon, but it is most definitely very surreal and pretty unbelievable at times. In our number 9 spot today, we have The Kitchen Casanova. The Kitchen Casanova was made in 1996 and was a part of Cartoon Network's What a Cartoon series. Basically, it was about a guy who's trying to prepare dinner for his date, but he is exceptionally nervous, and of course Murphy's Law would have it that everything is going wrong. This cartoon was actually eventually pulled from air because of the fact that at one point he accidentally slices off one of his fingers and blood goes spurting everywhere, which probably isn't an ideal image for children, but I honestly don't even think that was the worst part. In the end, when the date arrives and he reveals the big meal he made, it's actually just the grossest and creepiest looking thing ever, and it had me feeling very glad that I was only watching a cartoon. The dinner has eyeballs, bloody bones, a severed human foot, and a rolled up tongue that unfortunately unrolls, and then twitches before being covered up again. Okay, so it's a pile of gross, really not food, and I could get past that except for the fact that they actually eat it. I just hate that so much. Why did they have to? All in all, the whole thing is just very bizarre, and the ending leaves you with a really uncomfortable feeling. In our number 8 spot today, we have The Cameraman's Revenge. The Cameraman's Revenge comes all the way from 1912, and it is unlike anything I have ever seen before, which after watching it I feel pretty incredibly grateful for. Basically, the whole show is just a bunch of bugs, and I just want to start off by making it clear that these are very real dead bugs that are being used as puppets, okay? Nightmare fuel enough. That's too much. That little tidbit is enough to make me say no thank you, but if that's not enough to deter you, surely the strange plot will. Basically, Mr. Beetle is out on town and looking for some companionship when he sees a very beautiful lady dragonfly who he flirts with. Unbeknownst to Mr. Beetle, the dragonfly's ex-boyfriend, a grasshopper who is a cameraman, sees this whole thing
This
going
shit
down
gotta
and
be
is very
crazy, bro.
jealous.
I've never
As it turns
heard of
out,
this
Mr.
shit.
Beetle
This shit
has
gotta
a
be
Mrs.
crazy.
Beetle who hears about this
Mr.
infidelity
Grasshopper
from
and
the
Mr.
Grasshopper,
Beetle
but as it
slutting some
turns
shit
out,
out.
she
Like,
is having
what?
her own kind of adulterous experience. You really have to see this one to believe it. It's a bunch of it's just a bunch of unfaithful bugs. I don't know, and it's stop motion of dead bugs, which just makes it something I'll really never forget. But man, I wish I could. I really do. In our number 7 spot today, we have Sunshine. Sunshine, or Little Sun, is a show from Czechoslovakia that ran from 1979 until 1989, and unfortunately, it's actually pretty hard to find most of the episodes that aired. There were different segments in the show and different characters, and while most of it was fairly normal for the 1980s, there's just one character in this show that is well known for just being extremely creepy. He's not exactly a cartoon, but he is a puppet, and
I'm saying, like, we could really find anything. It's a matter of really looking for it and then finding the right one.
To something like Big Nose Blanket. The character is made up of two men under a blanket, and he has a super long neck. He has an absolutely terrifying voice that honestly would be suitable for a serial killer instead of a children's TV show. And the TV station that ran this show had been called Avant-Garde for not being afraid to show a puppet that isn't pretty, but I don't think not pretty is the best way to put it. I think downright terrifying is a far more accurate description of this guy. It's so creepy, but it's so 1980s. In our number 6 spot today, we have Cat Dog. Cat Dog is actually a cartoon I can remember watching when I was a kid, and I do remember it scaring the heck out of me. Maybe I was just easily scared, but I don't think so. Cat Dog is half cat, half dog creature that gets itself into situations and has quite the time figuring everything out, considering the whole cat half and dog half can't seem to get along with each other. This is already a weird premise, but it's not even the strangest part of the show. There is an episode when Cat wants to brush Dog's teeth, and he crawls into his own mouth and travels through its own body to get to the dog side, where it then comes out of Dog's mouth. So now, Cat is hanging out of Dog's mouth, inside out, veins and muscles and everything we never want to see exposed. I know this was probably meant to just be a silly little thing, but it's scary. I don't know, man. It's a lot for me to process. I can't even imagine a child. Maybe I'm looking into it a little too much, but like, I don't know. There's just a weird vibe going on here. I don't like it. No, thank you. In our number 5 spot today, we have Frothy Dog. Moving on from Cat Dog to Frothy Dog. All right, Frothy Dog was a part of Cartoon Network's Cartoons That Never Made It. You'll soon find out why. This series of shorts were small little cartoons that would play sometimes before commercials, or they would be put in somewhere to break up a longer running show, and the whole point of them were that they were supposed to be these little snippets or promos for cartoons that didn't ever get fleshed out into full shows for very obvious reasons. Frothy Dog is the show that never was, and it is about exactly what you were most likely assuming it is about, which is a dog with rabies. The short features a pretty upbeat tune, so it's not necessarily scary, but it's very disturbing. Some of the lyrics are things like, "You can look, but you shouldn't touch, or else he'll gnaw your arm off." Okay, not exactly a nice ring. Or another part where they explain that Frothy is always smiling because he has lockjaw. Alright, I can't believe this is real. At the end of the day, I feel extremely grateful that this is one that never made it into a full series, because I just don't think anyone really needs a frothy dog in their life, and I stand by that. In our number 4 spot today, we have Happy Tree Friends. Happy Tree Friends is absolutely not a show I would ever show to a child for many reasons.
That shit sound weird.
Get that out there. I think that's important to start off with. This show is an adult cartoon that is disguised like a kid's show. If you just saw the characters, you would have no idea what dark things really happen, because all of the characters are cute little forest animals, and the animation is very bright and very colorful, but this show is actually pretty horrifying. Each episode shows these cute little forest animals getting into extremely violent and graphic situations. Sometimes it is through accidents, and sometimes it is absolutely deliberate, and the violence ranges from smaller injuries and pain to some pretty full-blown gruesome activity. Most of the characters who die in the show do find themselves reincarnated for the next episode though, so I guess that's a plus. I'm just trying to find
did you tell Mommy and Dominique to follow me like on Twitch?
Ghostly Thrillers. Ghostly Thrillers is a creepy little animated movie that features 2 stories. One being The Youth Who Wanted to Shiver, which is about a boy who isn't afraid of anything, so he sets out on an adventure to learn how to shiver in fear. But it's the other part of this film, called Ghost in the Shed, that I really want to talk about today. Ghost in the Shed starts off with a traveling salesman who unfortunately
At New York Presbyterian, our data scientists and doctors are combining decades of medical experience caring for diverse communities with the power of data science to one day get ahead of a health issue before it becomes one. Stay amazing today and tomorrow.
Knocks on the wrong door one day. He knocks on a farmer's door just before dusk and asks if he can spend the night. The farmer and his sons are more than happy to have him stay because they actually just end up killing and robbing him before the sun comes up the next day. After this, they buried his body underneath the shed in the back and no one ever suspected a thing. Flash forward quite a few years and the area has become more populated and a new family lives in the house now. This new family obviously doesn't know about the body buried in the back, and they're actually good people and not killers. The salesman's spirit, of course, has been lingering around, and he won't move on to the other side until he gets someone to find his body so that people can know what happened to him. Basically, the rest of the film is just the salesman haunting this family until they finally dig up the backyard and find his skeleton, and honestly, the whole concept is just not something I would have assumed would be for children. I feel like there are real adult horror movies with the exact same plot, so this might just be one to skip over for the kids. In our number 2 spot today, we have Feline Follies. Feline Follies was created in 1919 and was the first time we got to see the character of Felix the cat. This cartoon shows Felix, who is called Master Tom at this point, meeting a female white cat. Felix serenades her and they fall in lust with each other, and Felix says that he will devote all 9 of his lives to her. How romantic. He even sings so loud he wakes up an entire neighborhood. While this is all going on, a group of mice have broken into Felix's home and basically just trashed it. When Felix's owner comes home and sees the mess, she blames Felix and ends up
I really just want to take a day and just watch
this is when Felix decides
shit.
that he will go and live with his new lady cat friend. To Felix's surprise, he now realizes that he is the father to an entire litter of kittens. At this point, you might be asking yourself how this cartoon is dark and how it could have possibly made it this high on the list. Well, it is how this one ends that really gets you. Felix obviously wasn't ready for the consequence of his actions because once he sees all of his little kitten children, his reaction is to run away. He runs towards the local gas house where he lays down and sticks a hose in his mouth and turns it on. So basically, he just takes his own life by intentionally inhaling coal gas. Definitely not how I thought this one was gonna turn out, and what a questionable storyline for a children's cartoon overall. What were people thinking, man? In our number 1 spot today, we have The Devil's Ball, or The Mascot. This stop-motion animated short comes from 1933 and is honestly quite a ride and a mix between fascinating and terrifying. Basically, it starts off fairly normal and fine, with a stuffed dog named Duffy coming to life and then heading out on an adventure for an orange, but this isn't what we are here to talk about today. Once midnight strikes, the devil comes out of a liquor bottle, and this is when things really start to get crazy. So basically now the devil is holding some kind of soiree, and things such as different creatures, vegetables, old garbage, it all begins to come to life and displaying human characteristics, and these are the guests of the ball. Over the course of the ball, we see some pretty spooky things, like when the devil tries to convince one of the guests to stab someone. Duffy is
Did you ever see this cartoon?
Of this whole thing because Duffy is actually
Matter of fact, I think
and
I
basically
did
the only
see this
creature
shit.
in this whole thing that isn't absolutely terrifying. All in all, the whole thing was originally 40 minutes, but it is tough to find that version, and most you will find now are a 25-minute cut. It certainly is worth a watch, but I wouldn't necessarily show this one to any children unless you want them to be scarred for life.
And at number 10, we have The Iron Giant and the very, very strong anti-gun messages. The Iron Giant is a 1999 American sci-fi film by Ted Hughes, set during the Cold War in 1957. The Iron Giant is about a boy called Hogarth who discovers a big robot who fell from space. Befriending the robot, Hogarth needs to stop the US Army and federal agents from finding him. Children may not be too clued up as to the overtones of the film, but for adults it's easy enough to see that the movie is very much anti-gun. Obviously, America is pretty divided when it comes to the Second Amendment, so some considered the film to be quite provocative, including the Washington Post, who said, "The movie, as beautifully drawn and sleek and engaging as it is, has the annoyance of incredible smugness." In at number 9, we have Finding Nemo and the animals good, people bad message. Ever noticed how the humans in Finding Nemo are awful? Well, that's that's not by accident. Disney Pixar's 2006 smash hit success Finding Nemo pretty much paints the message that humans do not treat animals well. Scuba divers capture Nemo, then he has to live in the awful Dr. Sherman's office fish tank and be visited by the catastrophic Darla. Of course, there is the classic line that all drains lead to the ocean, which is a less than subtle poke at humans for dumping their waste in the sea. In at number 8, we have the Tiny Toons message that drinking is bad, and you'll probably die. So this one's really awkward. Tiny Toons was a much-loved cartoon in the 90s, but one episode actually was way off the mark and has since been banned. An episode called One Beer was supposed to teach kids that underage drinking is bad, but instead had the potential to mentally scar them. In One Beer, 3 characters get drunk off one beer, steal a police car, drive it off a cliff, and die. Yes, die. Luckily, the episode has been banned, but still, I mean, kids are gonna be like staying well off that beer. In at number 7, we have WALL-E and the environmental and technological warning message. Disney Pixar's 2008 fantastic movie WALL-E has the same director as Finding Nemo, who also wrote the screenplay. Something tells me that Andrew Stanton is pretty concerned that humans are gonna destroy the planet. Set just under 800 years from now, WALL-E is a garbage-compressing robot tasked with cleaning our trashed planet Earth. No prizes for guessing that the film is teaching children to look after their environment. If not, this could well be our future. You will also note that all of the humans in the film are fat, taking a swipe at our lazy culture and our capability to become dependent on technology instead of doing things for ourselves. In at number 6, we have the Lego Movie and the strong anti-capitalism vibe. I mean, the antagonist is called Lord Business, so I think it's pretty clear how the writers feel about capitalist culture. Lord Business is the evil overlord of a big corporation called the Octan, which seems friendly on the outside, but is actually run by a robot army and is financing a police state. This is all very 1984, with posters of Lord Business propaganda popping up all over Bricksburg. Lego Emmett proclaims Octan Corporation produces all music, coffee, dairy, television shows, surveillance cameras, history books, and voting machines, aka kids don't buy into big brands like McDonald's and Coca-Cola because they're corrupt and they want to control your mind. And all hail the proletariat worker Emmett. In at number 5, we have Cars 2 and the very strong oil companies are bad message. Cars 2 is pretty anti-oil, ironic for a movie about vehicles that rely on them. Evil, corrupt lemon cars want to maximize oil profits and will do anything to sabotage the Grand Prix, which has opted to use a sustainable energy source. It's pretty easy to read between those lines. Oil bad, renewable energy good. Director John Lasseter even admitted the underlying message of the movie in a Wall Street Journal interview. He said that they crafted the bad guy story to be oil versus alternative fuel. Okay, so this next one may not be an official hidden message, but is a pretty strong and interesting theory that keeps on circulating around the internet. In at number 4, remember the Rugrats? Well, some people think that the writers were trying to tell us that the kids were all dead and were a figment of alive Angelica's unstable mind. Weird, right? But actually, on a rewatch, it seems kind of plausible. The theory goes that Angelica's mother and her brother Tommy died in some kind of accident. That is why Angelica has a doll that she styles to kind of look like her mum, who apparently was on drugs at some point. Who knows? Her dad, Stu, deals with the loss by constantly making toys in the basement for his son that will never get the chance to play with them. Chucky and his mum also died, which apparently explains Chaz's neurotic character. The DeVilles aborted a child that Angelica couldn't figure out the gender of, and that's why they're all twins. The plot thickens in All Grown Up, as theorists say the show is consistent with Angelica turning to drugs to deal with her mental state. I don't know about this one. In at number 3, we have Who Framed Roger Rabbit and the strong themes of segregation. Set in LA in 1947, Who Framed Roger Rabbit is a 1988 movie about cartoons and humans living alongside one another. In 1947 in real-life LA, there were huge racial divides and tensions, and this seems to be the case in the movie if you look a little deeper. The cartoons are portrayed as something for the humans' entertainment, and their Toontown is under threat of demolition. Gentrification station. Toons are consistently stereotyped, and indeed, human-only bars exist. Toons can perform, but they cannot be audience members. The book the film is based on, Who Censored Roger Rabbit, makes things even more apparent. I feel like the overarching message is Play nicely, guys. In at number 2, one of my favorite movies and stories of all time, we have The Wizard of Oz, which is actually an analogy for 1890s America. L. Frank Baum's The Wizard of Oz is a thinly veiled allegory for late 19th century America. The scarecrow represents the poor Midwestern farmers and Dorothy the American public. Dorothy walks on the yellow brick road representing the gold bars of money to see a wizard, a banker, in Emerald City, which is green to symbolize money and the American capitalist dream. In the end, Dorothy decides that life over the rainbow isn't for her, instead preferring the comforts of home. Baum exposes the banks as corrupt, the American dream as flawed, and suggests that the simple life is a path best followed. Here we are at number 1 of our hidden messages in children's stories, and I don't even know what to make of this. We have Alice in Wonderland. I mean, there are many weird messages in Alice in Wonderland, and who knows what truly all of them mean. One thing is for sure though, it isn't just about a girl who falls down a hole. Many say Alice in Wonderland is a coming of age story with a young Alice going through puberty and learning to accept her body as it changes. Others read some pretty undeniable drug and alcohol messages in the story. Alice has a bite of a magic mushroom, she eats an Eat Me cookie that has some pretty freaky side effects, and she runs into an undeniably high caterpillar smoking what could be either crack or marijuana. To be honest, I feel like we could sit here and try and interpret Alice in Wonderland for days. Most of it probably goes over children's heads.
Number 10, Uluru Rock. I'll be honest, I'm a rock guy. I go on vacation, I'm goggles up the entire time. I love looking for geology and history. It's hard not to want to bring something home every trip, right? But depending where you are, you could be in a lot of trouble for doing so. In the Northern Territory of Australia, for example, there's a beautiful monumental sandstone formation. It's known as Ayers Rock or Uluru Rock. Now this site is sacred for the Aboriginal people of the land. They respectfully ask that no visitors take any piece of the sandstone home with them. Yet of course, some of us can't follow simple instructions, and in numerous cases, bad luck has followed them home as well. Breakups, death of a loved one, you name it, it's all bad. Why risk it? Just leave things alone, you know? Number 9. Robert the Evil Doll. A man named Rob Otto, he was given a doll that looked a lot like him. One of his servants who didn't like him made him this doll. This was clearly a voodoo doll, right? Obviously, this is an obvious trap. Neighbors would then hear Robert talking to this doll. Robert and Robert the podcast, I guess. I don't know, tune in. Now, after Robert's untimely death, the new owners of the house found that same doll. They found it in the attic, still there. That family was haunted afterwards by the same doll. They would hear threats coming from it at night, so now the doll is on display at a museum in Key West. No more threats, just glass cage forever. Number 8, Elmo. The Sesame Street icon has been in homes for many years. There was a literal stampede when Tickle Me Elmo was released. An employee was sadly trampled, got his ribs broken, is horrible. People go crazy for these things. When the Elmo Knows Your Name toy was launched by Fisher-Price back in 2005, there were 15,000 names ready to go. Only one family was traumatized. Only one. That's not bad, all things considered. That Elmo toy apparently spoke on its own, threatening to harm the family, often, so they tossed it out immediately. This happened more than once though. The audio sounded off for some devices in some homes. Be Like Elmo sounded like Beat Up Elmo. The Elmo phone was also released in 2009, and it often said 456, but in some cases it sounded like Who Wants to Have Very different things, those two. Those are two different phrases. Those are not the same at all. We're all learning things with Elmo, whether you like it or not. Number 7. Belcourt Castle chairs. This one's like the opposite of musical chairs. These chairs are no fun at all. This Rhode Island ballroom is beautiful. It's a cottage mansion, a lot of wood, a lot of history. It smells great, I bet. I would have bet that there would be a ghost woman in the ballroom. Turns out it's actually a handful of chairs. Who knew? That was my second guess. Handful of chairs. That's good. Visitors have reported an eerie feeling when standing close to these chairs. They get the chills, they get this sense of energy almost. Now, things certainly go a step further. Some guests have seen the chair move on their own, or they've had the chairs push against them, all of course by some invisible force. I'm not sure if I believe in ghosts personally, but if I saw a chair moving, yeah, that would do it. Just one of those would definitely flip my beliefs for sure. Haunted furniture, that gets me. That's pretty bad. Number 6, the haunted skull. I'm pretty sure every skull is haunted. No, but I don't know. This one specifically, ooh, this one's real haunted though. Here we go. Located in the Burton Agnes Hall over in England, the Screaming Skull sits quite still, but its curse is very real and very active. The Screaming Skull once belonged to Catherine Ann Griffith, who died in 1620. Now, reports of strange figures or shadows around the skull, that's one thing, but many people believe they could still hear the screams of one Catherine Ann Griffith to this day. Number 5, the unlucky mummy. Right off the bat, the unlucky mummy isn't an actual mummy per se. It's rather the lid of a coffin that once belonged to a high status woman who lived sometime around 950 BCE. So a little old, little time ago. The mummy board wasn't seen again until the early 1800s AD. It was found in Thebes. 4 Englishmen found it, and of course they were celebrating this ancient piece of history, but it didn't take long for all 4 of those men to pass away from mysterious circumstances. If you're looking for more top 10s on ancient history, come meet me over on our top 10 history channel. It's called Bumblebee. We do top 10s only on historical stuff. Ancient eras, mummies, silly Victorian era hats, cool shoes, I don't know, you name it. It's all over at Bumblebee. See you there. Number 4. Mandy the Haunted Doll. Mandy lives in the Quesnel Museum in Canada. Awesome, nice and close to home. The staff of the museum insists that Mandy is kept in a separate display case all by herself, because when she's with other dolls, she would end up knocking them over somehow, some way. Staff also reported that their lunches would disappear and that photos of the doll would end up glitching out. The lunches disappearing, that's for sure one dude who's blaming ghosts. That's actually not a bad plan. I'm okay with that. But the photos, that's terrifying. That's a surefire sign that it's haunted. Number 3. The Great Bed of Ware. We figured we'd get nice and cozy for this next one. For starters, it's massive, and it's cozy. It looks like the bed a king would certainly sleep in, and right.
When you and the team are pitching a new product, Grammarly's tone suggestions can offer a more personable approach to win over a big client.
Rightfully so. The Great Bed of Ware was built for the royal family back in 1463. It was 12 feet by 12 feet. Jonas Fosbrook, a carpenter from that time, they impressed King Edward IV so much with their work that the king gave them a pension for the rest of their life. People would travel all across the land to see this bed. That's a fun family vacation. Yeah, we're gonna go see a bed. Yeah, Disneyland's closed today. Let's go see this bed. Shakespeare mentioned this bed in his play, The Twelfth Night, okay? This is a big deal. All those who stayed in the bed, though, they did not have a good night's rest. No, instead they woke up to scratches and bruises, or they would wake up just on the floor. Yeah, somehow they would roll out of a 12-foot bed. Today it can be found in the Victoria and Albert Museum, in case you want to go in there and take a nap. Would you stay the night in this old, haunted, dirty, and probably very uncomfortable bed? Sound off below. I definitely wouldn't. Number 2. The Baker's Wedding Dress. Back in 1849, in the small town of Altoona, Pennsylvania, Elias Baker and his wife, Hetty, lived in the Baker mansion. They had 2 sons and 1 daughter named Anna Baker. Anna had fallen in love with one of her father's employees. Nice. Another steel worker, but her father wouldn't allow the relationship to take off. So Anna vowed to never marry again ever. She locked herself in her room for the time being. And when her father passed away in 1848, she went to find her true love again, but he had since moved on and settled down. Yeah, worst case scenario. So she spent the rest of her days behaving erratically, and her soul apparently still haunts that same wedding dress today. Not just the dress, also the mansion is apparently haunted as well. Guests would report furniture moving around. What's with ghosts and moving furniture? Where were these guys when I was moving? And finally, number 1, the Bassano vase. This vase comes from the 15th century. It made for an excellent wedding gift, of course, in Italy one day, but the night before, the big day, bride sadly lost her life with the vase still in her possession. So the family kept it afterwards, of course, but as the vase was passed down the family line, a pattern began to unveil itself. It was kind of hard to ignore. Whomever held possession of the Bassano vase died shortly after in some way, shape, or form. Now, keep in mind, this was the 15th century, so the average lifespan was 30 to 40 years old on a good day. But after many deaths in the family, it was packed away for good, just to be safe, or so they thought. The vase showed up again in 1988 alongside a note. The note was pretty to the point. It said, "Beware, this vase brings death." End of note. Pretty simple, I like it. Whoever found it was probably like, huh, okay, and then continued on with it, and then it was auctioned for over $2,000 sans note. Weird, they left the note out of that, that's odd. The pharmacist who won the auction, well, you guessed it, passed away within months.
Starting off this list at our number 10 spot, we have the crystal skulls. The ancient crystal skulls found in Mexico and Central America are a group of pre-Columbian artifacts that are believed to be over 1,000 years old. These skulls are made out of clear or milky quartz and are intricately carved to resemble human skulls. Despite being discovered in the 19th and 20th centuries, their true origin and purpose remains a mystery. According to legend, the crystal skulls were created by the Maya or the Aztecs and are said to possess magical powers that can heal or grant spiritual enlightenment to those who come in contact with them. Some people believe that the crystal skulls are extraterrestrial in origin and that they hold the key to unlocking the secrets of the universe. Many theories have been put forth over the years about the purpose and significance of the crystal skulls. Some researchers believe that they were used for religious or ceremonial purposes, while others speculate that they may have been used for divination, or even as tools for communication with otherworldly beings. Despite decades of research and study, the true origins and purpose of the crystal skulls remain shrouded in mystery. In our number 9 spot today, we have Linear A. Linear A is an undeciphered script used by the Minoan civilization between 1800 and 1450 BCE. The script was first discovered in 1900 by British archaeologist Arthur Evans and was used to write the Minoan language, which is also still largely unknown. Linear A is composed of over 100 different signs, including pictograms and ideograms, but it is believed to be a syllabic script, meaning that each sign represents a syllable or sound. Despite numerous attempts by researchers to decipher the script, its meaning and purpose remains a mystery. The mystery surrounding Linear A is compounded by the fact that the Minoan civilization itself is shrouded in mystery, with little known about its social structure, economy, or religious practices. The decipherment of Linear A could potentially shed light on these enigmatic aspects of Minoan culture, but for now the script remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the ancient world. In our number 8 spot today, we have the Tartaria tablets. These are a set of 3 clay tablets discovered in 1961 in Romania, dating back to the Neolithic era around 5300 BCE. The tablets contain a series of symbols that are thought to be the oldest form of writing in Europe. While there is still much debate about the meaning of the symbols and whether they constitute as a true writing system, many researchers believe that they represent a form of proto-writing or proto-cuneiform. The tablets have caused controversy in the archaeological community, with some experts questioning their authenticity and others arguing that they represent a significant discovery that could change our understanding of early human communication. Despite their importance, the Tartaria tablets remain largely shrouded in mystery, and their true meaning and purpose may never be fully understood. In our number 7 spot today, we have the stone spheres from Costa Rica. These ancient stone balls found in Costa Rica are a collection of nearly perfect spherical stones ranging in size from a few centimeters to over 2 meters in diameter. These stone balls were created by the Dequise culture between 700 and 1530 CE, and they were discovered in southern Costa Rica in the 1930s. They have since become an archaeological mystery, with many unanswered questions about their origins, purpose, or how they were made. One of the biggest mysteries surrounding the stone balls is how they were created. The spheres are made of granite and other hard stones, and they were perfectly shaped without the use of any modern tools or technology. Some have suggested that they were made using some sort of unknown technique, or that they were created with the help of extraterrestrial technology. Another mystery surrounding the stone balls is their purpose. Some believe that they were used as part of a game, while others argue that they had a more practical use, such as astronomical observations or as a status symbol. However, no definitive answers have ever been found. The stone balls have also raised questions about the Dequise culture itself. Despite their impressive creations, very little is known about the people and their language and written records, which have not survived. This lack of knowledge has made it difficult to fully understand the significance of the stone balls and their role in the culture. In our number 6 spot today, we have the Piri-Reis map. The Piri-Reis map is a world map created by Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri-Reis in 1513. The map is notable for its accurate representation of South America and Antarctica, which were not officially discovered until centuries later. Of course, this means that what has puzzled researchers is the source of his knowledge. One theory is that Piri may have had access to ancient maps that are no longer in existence, such as the Library of Alexandria, which was destroyed in a fire in the 1st century BCE. Others speculate that he may have had contact with extraterrestrial beings who provided him with advanced knowledge of geography and cartography. What makes the Piri-Reis map even more mysterious is the presence of features that are not visible in modern maps. For example, the map includes a land bridge between South America and Antarctica, which has been confirmed by modern satellite imagery. However, this land bridge was only discovered by modern science in the 20th century. Another mystery surrounding the Piri-Reis map is the presence of a series of markings and symbols that appear to depict astronomical and astrological data. Some researchers believe that these symbols may have been used for navigation or even to track the movement of the stars. Despite decades of research and study, the true source of Piri-Reis's knowledge and the purpose of the markings on the map remain a mystery, making it one of the most enigmatic ancient artifacts to this day. In our number 5 spot today, we have the Antikythera mechanism. The Antikythera mechanism is an ancient Greek artifact discovered in 1901 by a group of sponge divers off of the coast of the island of Antikythera. The device, which is believed to date back to the 2nd or 1st century BCE, is a very complex mechanism made up of gears and cogs, and it is thought to have been used to predict astronomical events and the cycles of the solar and lunar calendars. What makes this mechanism so mysterious is its advanced technology and the fact that nothing else like it has been discovered from the same time period. The device is believed to have been incredibly sophisticated for its time, and its level of complexity was not achieved again until the development of similar technology during the Renaissance, over 1,000 years later. The mechanism is also mysterious because its purpose and origin are still not fully understood. Despite extensive research and analysis, there is still much that remains unknown about the device, including who built it and how it was used. The Antikythera mechanism remains a fascinating artifact, and it continues to capture the imagination of scientists, historians, and just the general public. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Voynich manuscript. The Voynich manuscript is a very mysterious book that dates back to the 15th century, written in an unknown script and illustrated with strange drawings of plants, animals, and astrological symbols. The manuscript is named after Wilfrid Voynich, a rare book dealer who acquired the book in 1912. What makes the Voynich manuscript so mysterious is the fact that no one has been able to decipher its contents or identify the language it is written in. The strange drawings and symbols have baffled scholars for centuries, and many theories have been proposed as to its purpose and origin. Some believe that the manuscript is a secret code or cipher, while others speculate that it is a lost alchemaic text or an early form of cryptography. Despite extensive efforts to decipher the manuscript, its secrets remain unsolved, and it continues to be a source of fascination and speculation for scholars and enthusiasts alike. The Voynich manuscript is a testament to the enduring power of mystery and intrigue, and it serves as a reminder of the vastness and complexity of human knowledge and understanding. Maybe this book that we have is holding on to some of the most important secrets that have just been lost to time. In our number 3 spot today, we have the works of old men. The works of old men are structures that were first observed from the air by a British pilot in 1927, and they are located near the Azraq Oasis in Jordan. There are hundreds of these wheel-like structures that are over 80 feet wide, some even as large as 200 feet. These huge structures have been dated back so far that they might just be the oldest man-made creations that we have ever found. While this is all amazing, we have absolutely no idea what they are or why they were created. The theories range from things like sun tracking to ceremonies to some sort of spiritual relevance, but we really just aren't sure. While things like this are incredible finds, and it's amazing that some of the first man-made things still exist on our Earth, it is insane how we have no idea what they are or how to use them, and unfortunately, especially because of the fact that it's been thousands and thousands of years, it's most likely that the mysteries surrounding them are totally lost with the past. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Joppa stones. These stones were found by archaeologists in China. There were hundreds of discs made of stone that were found under a ton of dust inside of a cave. The notable thing about these discs is that they resemble phonography records with a hole in the center that leads into a spiral groove. These stones are at least 10,000 years old, and the groove in them is made up of super small hieroglyphics. Here's the kicker though, these hieroglyphics were deciphered and found to have stories of...
Hey teachers, you may love Kami because it makes learning accessible for everyone. I love it. Because I feel like I fit in.
Spaceships crashing into mountains. These spaceships were apparently being flown by what was called Droppa. After this discovery, the researcher who found it was ridiculed as people believed it was ridiculous, but years later some Russian researchers asked for a few of the stones to examine. Upon the Russian examination, they found some sort of extraordinary vibration or hum coming from the stones. After this, research on the stones either stopped or has just been hidden from the public. Finally, in our number 1 spot today, we have the Indus Valley Script. This is an ancient writing system that was used by the Indus Valley Civilization, one of the earliest known civilizations in the world. The script is believed to have been in use from sometime around 2600 to 1900 BCE, and it is one of the few ancient scripts that is yet to be deciphered. The Indus Valley Script consists of over 400 different symbols, which have been found on seals, pottery, and other artifacts from the civilization. Despite numerous attempts to decipher the script, researchers have been unable to identify the language or meaning behind the symbols. The mysterious nature of the Indus Valley Script has led to much speculation about the civilization that created it. Some researchers believe that the symbols may have been used for religious or ritual purposes, while others suggest that they may have been used for trade or administration. Regardless of their purpose, the symbols remain a fascinating mystery of the ancient world, and their true meaning may never be fully understood.
At number 10, we have a pit full of arms. I don't think anything nice was ever found at the bottom of a pit. No one has gone to the base of a pit and found a PlayStation 5 with The Last of Us 3. It's almost always death, and this pit was no different. Some archaeologists in France came across a super deep pit. Like, if you fell in it, you would die 100% of the time. There's no way you're sticking that landing, not at all. So it makes sense at the bottom of this pit they found a bunch of skeletons from people who had been thrown into the pit. It was Death Pit, which is the name of the metal band I'm going to start after this video. Now, the thing that was so shocking about the bodies that were thrown into this pit of despair is what happened to the bodies before they were thrown into the pit. All the people had their arms chopped off and their skulls bashed in. Like, you're already going to throw the people to their death. Why would you mutilate their bodies before you chuck them in? The pit was literally layered. At the bottom layer was all arms and the top layer was all bodies that had their heads smashed in. Like some sort of sick cake. Who would do such a thing? Well, the bodies were dated back to 4000 BC, so their motivations were very unknown, but it's probably just because they were cavemen. At number 9, we have the Black Sarcophagus. This is my problem with archaeologists. They're always digging around finding things that maybe don't want to be found. Maybe something was buried 20 feet underground because it was never supposed to be opened ever again, like the Black Sarcophagus. This thing was dug up in 2018, and right away people were saying that this thing was cursed. It got posted all over the internet, and it spread around like a mid-tier meme. Like, you know, the kind of meme that lasts for like 2 or 3 weeks at best. Like, when you look at it, you just blow air out of your nose and then move on. Like that kind of meme. It wasn't great. Well, everyone said that this thing was going to rain fire from the sky if it was ever opened. I mean, and it does look like something pulled right out of a movie. And guess what the archaeologists did anyways? They opened it. Oh, this creepy box that might kill everyone? Let's just open it just in case. There might be a boat in there, who knows? Now, nothing can be connected directly to the sarcophagus, but remember how much people were complaining about 2019 and saying a bunch of bad stuff happened? Coincidence? I think not. At number 8, we have head on your chest. How do you want to die? This might be something you want to pick because it's the only thing in life that you can guarantee. I want to die on TV saying something cool, so my death quote gets turned into a meme like 100 times. It's like all over the internet. I want my death to be turned into like an Infinity War level meme, like a huge level meme. Also, side note, Thanos did nothing wrong. But I don't think that these guys got to pick their death. There were some weird bodies that were discovered in England. They were dated back to the 14th century. The weird thing about these bodies is that they were all buried laying flat with their heads propped up on their chest like they were holding a basketball, which means that someone was chopping off these dudes' heads before they sent them into the ground. Not the most fun way to die, but at least they got to keep their head. They didn't start kicking it around like a soccer ball or something. If I was one of the guys in charge, I would bury them, but I would switch their heads around so the person finding them would have to do a match game to match up the right heads. At number 7, we have puzzle time. Did you know that if you throw a person's body into a bog and it's cold enough, it will help preserve the body? Well, I didn't know this either until I started making this list. Well, there was a dude in Scotland who found some bodies that had been buried for hundreds of years, but it seemed like before they were buried, someone had been doing some bog therapy on them to keep them in a preserved state. This is slightly creepy, but let's kick it up a notch. There were 2 bodies found, a man and a woman. Both of their bodies were very strange. There were limbs and body parts that seemed to be too large for their frame, almost like it was some some sort of mutation. Everyone was confused. Well, thanks to the magic of DNA, the people digging up these bodies were able to find out that this happened because someone had been taking different body parts from several dead bodies and assembling them to make some sort of creation. Very creepy. And some of the mismatched body parts were hundreds of years older than the others. How did someone find bodies that were hundreds of years old, and why did they try to attach them to other people's bodies? That's something we will never know. At number 6, we have the cheese. Usually people digging around in Egypt want to find a gold tomb that is filled with guys wrapped in toilet paper. But every now and again you find something a little more strange. A tomb in Egypt had a little snack inside waiting to be dug up. Why would this be on a list of scary things? Well, because the cheese was over 3,000 years old and was packed with some unknown bacteria. If someone was dumb enough to bite into this cheese, they could unleash a plague that could wipe out humanity as we know it. Death would sweep through the world and ravage every last man, woman, and child. There would be nowhere on earth that you would be able to be safe from the terrors of this bloody cheese. People would become cheese monsters, like all the creatures that walk around in The Last of Us, except they would smell like Parmesan. Well, either that or the dude would just get the worst diarrhea of his life, like poop water for like 8 weeks straight or something. Really, either is possible when you weigh it out. At number 5, we have Wolverine-ish. For this next one, it really depends on what part of the story you look at to whether or not this will be a nightmare to you. So in Italy, a body was found from someone who seemed to be from the 8th century. He was a pretty old dude, and this guy had his arm chopped off right above the elbow. Now that is the scary part, someone amputating part of your body. No one wants to have their arm chopped off at any joint. But in place of his missing forearm was a big knife. This guy had a stump, and then at the end of it was an engineered prosthetic that had a knife on it. He had a knife hand, which I think is cool as hell. This guy could be walking around in the year 800 punch stabbing people like a G. Punch stab, punch stab, punch stab, punch stab, punch stab. This guy's cool as hell. But I can understand why that would scare people, because you never want to be on the bad end of a guy punch stabbing you. At number 4, we have a gnawing sensation. The body of a Roman woman had a little surprise in her nether regions, and let me tell you, it was not a sexy one. Not everything below the belt gets hot. In fact, this was one of the most gross things that has ever been discovered, and I never want to come in contact with anything like this ever again. Well, this lady was found with a tumor in her pelvis. What was crazy about it is that the tumor was caused by an infected egg inside of her womb. This would cause the egg to partially develop, and the tumor had teeth in it. Ugh. That sounds like something that should be pulled out of a horror movie. The living tumor that has come to take over your planet. You will all be slaves to this toothy monster. Because this lady happened to die before x-rays were even a concept, there's a good chance she had no idea what dental danger was inside her body. At number 3, we have vampires. As much as we complain about the world, it's nice to know that things used to be way worse. Like maybe you don't like your job, or maybe you were stuck in traffic, or maybe you even got dumped. But at least you weren't tortured to death because people thought you were a vampire. A tomb in Bulgaria uncovered a man from the 1200s who seemed to be horribly murdered, most likely by people who thought he was some sort of vampiric monster. It seemed that he was forced into a grave, and then someone took a bladed weapon to his leg and hacked it off. And because the only way to kill a vampire is to stab it through its heart, they hammered a steel stake through this dude's chest, pinning him to his own grave. Joke's on them, you have to use a wooden stake, so this guy rose from the dead to seek revenge. Just kidding, he died for sure. He was for sure dead. At number 2, we have Pit of Sorrow. Something this list has taught me is that things have definitely got nicer over time. I know the world isn't perfect, but this next point shows how commonplace brutality used to be. There was a pit found in Austria that had an entire tribe of people in it. 94 bodies were found, and they were all dated back to 5200 BC. Now, how did all these people from the tribe die in the same place? Well, they were attacked, and from the looks of it, it seemed like the opposing tribe came in to wipe them all out. Everyone in the pit had their head cracked open, and then had their knees and legs snapped, and some of them had arrowheads lodged in their backs. The thing that sent this over the edge is that 27 of the 94 bodies were children. This tribe, the attacking tribe, made sure that everyone was dead except for women. There were only 2 female bodies found in the gravesite, so this most likely means that the women were all taken into slavery. Alright, for the number 1 spot, we have some hidden tunnels that were dug up in Chavinduantar in Peru. The tunnels zigzagged into all sorts of hidden rooms that could have been used as some sort of hiding place or escape route from invading tribes. But it seemed that the main thing that the tunnels were used for was sacrificing people in rituals. Several bodies were discovered that were dismembered in all sorts of strange ways. They would be strapped down to altars and then mutilated to death. Some of them had their heads chopped off, and others seemed to have their hearts pulled out of their chest while they were still alive. Imagine someone putting a bag over your head in the middle of the night and then dragging you to some horrible underground lair and then cutting your still beating heart out of your chest. That's one hell of a Friday night.
Starting off this countdown, we have the chariot. A really cool artifact found in King Tut's tomb was his chariot. The chariot was found dismantled, but they ended up reconstructing it for display. Okay, first off, how did they build that ancient thing without any blueprints? That's talent right there, because I struggle building IKEA furniture even with blueprints. Now, what makes this artifact significant is that it's theorized that the chariot might have been King Tut's cause of death. King Tut was found with a fractured lower leg, shattered pelvis, and ribs. A new analysis shows that he was crushed on one side of his body, likely while on his knees. So some believe that he fell from his chariot in a horrific accident and died. If this is the case, then that thing is most certainly cursed. Moving on at number 9, we have the meat mummy container. So apparently mummies get hungry on the way to the afterlife. As a result, they are often buried with food. The food is carefully preserved so that they can last a long time for their lengthy journey. This is done by preparing the meat for eating, then wrapping the meat in linen. So they basically mummify the meat. In King Tut's tomb, they found 48 containers of meat mummies. Guess King Tut is a big eater. Good thing that we took away his source of food from him. Like, come on.
Get 8 of KFC's new hot and spicy wings for only $4.99.
Come on guys, you're making the curse worse than it is. This dude's gonna be mad. I mean, I would be if people took away food from me. We all know how sacred food is. In our 8th spot, we have the toe and finger caps. This is one of the more odd items found in King Tut's tomb. So King Tut was found with gold toe caps on his feet and fingers. That's right. Just little golden covers for each individual toe and finger. These were placed on the divine after death so that their toes and fingers keep their shape. These were placed onto his body during mummification. It's also thought to protect the dead from magical dangers. Now, I'm hoping that they didn't remove these little caps from his body, but chances are they probably did. So if anything happens to his digits, boy, he's gonna be mad. Coming in at number 7, we have the woven gloves. Experts believe that this next piece is one of the few items that was actually used by King Tut while he was alive. International Egyptologist Tariq El-Awadi said, and I quote, "Most of the objects found in the tomb are ceremonial or designed to be used by the pharaoh in the afterlife." But he believes that these gloves were probably worn by King Tut, either during the wintertime or when he was riding his royal chariot. That's pretty cool. I mean, the gloves don't look too stylish, but I think all of these ancient artifacts are so amazing. Moving on to number 6, we have the canopic jars. As part of their burial process, Egyptians would place the internal organs of the dead into 4 jars before mummification. One jar had King Tut's lungs, another had his stomach, another had his intestines, and one was for his liver. And apparently I say intestines wrong. That's how it is in Canada. Sorry. The jars were found inside of an alabaster chest. It was thought that King Tut needed these organs in the afterlife, which is why they were preserved. Not only that, but 4 goddesses protected them. But now these jars have been moved to the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. But his body is still in its original resting place. Great. So King Tut's body and his internal organs are kept separate. Bet he loves that. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the
down for the name of highlights
walking
tomorrow.
sticks. Among the countless artifacts Tut was buried